and a transient mortgage rate structure be changed to match what's at Boat Haven. So that John Wayne Marina, there'll be a dollars per foot per day rate instead of the current dollars per day for different slip lengths. So in summary, staff is recommending the commission authorize the mortgage rates as presented and to include the actual August CPI adjustment for the 2017 budget.
I would make a motion that we approve the mortgage rates as presented and to include the actual August CPI adjustment for the 2017 budget.
Second.
Got a motion, a second, any discussion? I have a question, just a clarification, and that's, so what's presented under the current PA Boat Haven, for the 80 foot, you've got it listed at $694, but that actually, the proposal is to add 50 cents to that.
That's correct.
Okay. And then also the greater than 75 foot transient mortgage rate, the number 2, and increase that by 25 cents. That recommended increase was based on market data that we gathered for transient rates?
Yeah, it's more based on discussions with the previous agent down there and Mesco Petroleum as well. They thought it was appropriate taking a look at what transient rates are at some other marinas.
Okay.
And I think we determined that there were currently 5 customers that this new rate would affect in the Boat Haven.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It would be nice, and so I'm supportive of it, but just for informational sake, if people are not pleased with the increased rates and estimate of how much we are subsidizing the marinas based on our estimates that we created previously, that it's somewhere between this and this. So that would be a, you know, we put estimates into how much is allocation, and we said even if there was 0 allocation or 1/10 of that amount, or whatever, some very small amount, that we still are subsidizing this, and this is how much this is costing us to operate. Just having that information available for potential, for our tenants would be good information to me as a commissioner.
I think we get that in some of our budget reports, so don't we?
I think because, I think what we should, what we have is what we created for the discussion in the PowerPoint, that sheet. Boiling it down, there's a bunch of different assumptions as far as what's the level of occupancy and things like that. So I think we can certainly send out again to each of the commissions just that single spreadsheet that shows the cost for PA Boat Haven and John Wayne Marina that we talked about in our meetings, and then one can work with that as basic information, but we would be making assumptions.
Sure, I get that.
So that works.
So what we haven't had though is those assumptions using the current approved rates. So if we approve this right now and we say, it would allow me to say to someone, well, let's assume we have a 90% occupancy, which is a pretty big assumption. We typically, you know, that's hard to achieve. But if we assume that, and if we assume very little overhead applied, we still are subsidizing this business line by this much. And so, yes, there's assumptions, but it could be a whole lot more than that. But here's a really conservative approach that should be difficult to argue with, and then having that information and saying it's at least this much that we're subsidizing.
So we can take that spreadsheet and we can add an additional line on it that says a current rate, current assumption of what length of boat that it will be, and provide an example on it, because it will also matter on the length of boat.
I think what I would like, and you might be referring to this, is I know we know this, I know the staff knows this, not all the marina tenants know this, and so at some point in the future, you're gonna send a notice noticing them of the rate increase. I would like some type of messaging done in that notice to show them why and how we got to where we got. It very simplified, and show them the subsidy, because it's not, we know it, but they don't, and I think it's important, if we're gonna send them a notice, let's put that in there, because if we don't, they're just gonna all show up here.
Mhm.
So it'd be very important for us to do that messaging in the notice of increase.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
We can do an example and then we can attach that, file as some backup for it, so
Yeah.
that they understand how that number was arrived at.
If they want greater data, they can come then, but at least we're heading off most of it.
Yep. Okay. We had the discussion and a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Mentioned here? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I also want to thank, John Nutter for helping me out with, some of these, calculations.
They're getting complex.
Meant to mention it, yeah.
Okay, now we move on to item 9, airport